On June 6, 1944, as Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy, a single soldier's actions would change the course of the battle. Lieutenant Joe Winters, a young American engineer from the 101st Airborne, found himself behind enemy lines with a critical mission to disable the heavily fortified German artillery positions that threatened to decimate the invading forces. With only a few minutes to spare before the guns would unleash their deadly barrage, Winters embarked on a daring quest to outsmart the enemy. Armed with nothing but his wits, a pair of wire cutters, and a basic understanding of the enemy's communication systems, he set out to hack into the German artillery network. The stakes were high, and the clock was ticking. As Winters navigated the treacherous terrain, avoiding German patrols and dodging artillery fire, he stumbled upon an old, abandoned telephone exchange. With the sound of gunfire and explosions growing louder by the minute, he quickly got to work, using his knowledge of telephony to tap into the German communication lines. The plan was to send a fake order to the artillery positions, instructing them to hold fire until further notice. But as Winters frantically worked to establish a connection, he realized that the Germans had implemented a complex system of encryption and authentication, designed to prevent exactly this kind of sabotage. With time running out, Winters made a split-second decision that would prove to be the turning point of the battle. He decided to use an old, untested tactic known as frequency hopping to bypass the German encryption. The gamble paid off, as Winters managed to send the fake order, convincing the German gunners to hold their fire. The reprieve was brief, but it was enough to allow the Allied forces to establish a foothold on the beach, paving the way for the eventual liberation of Western Europe. As news of Winters' heroics spread, the young lieutenant became an unlikely hero, hailed by his comrades and superiors alike. His actions that day would go down in history as one of the most daring and ingenious feats of the war, a testament to the power of human ingenuity and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. The use of the M for Sherman tank, the B-17 Flying Fortress, and the P-47 Thunderbolt played a crucial role in the Normandy landings, providing air support and cover for the ground troops. The bravery and sacrifice of the 101st Airborne, as well as the Wehrmacht's stubborn resistance, would be remembered for generations to come. The events of that fateful day, June 6, 1944, would forever be etched in the annals of history, a reminder of the devastating consequences of war and the enduring power of the human spirit. As the Allies continued to push deeper into occupied France, they would face numerous challenges and setbacks, from the hedgerows of Normandy to the battlefields of the Bulge. But on that day, in that moment, Winters' quick thinking and cunning had changed the course of the war, securing a vital victory for the Allies and paving the way for the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany. The significance of Winters' actions cannot be overstated, as they had a direct impact on the outcome of the battle, allowing the Allies to gain a foothold on the continent and ultimately leading to the liberation of Western Europe. The use of innovative tactics, such as frequency hopping, and the bravery of individual soldiers, like Winters, would be crucial in the Allied victory, as they adapted to the ever-changing landscape of war. As the war drew to a close, the Allies would reflect on the sacrifices made and the bravery shown, from the beaches of Normandy to the streets of Berlin, and Winters' actions would be remembered as a pivotal moment in the struggle for freedom and democracy. As the days passed, Winters found himself at the forefront of the Allied advance, using his knowledge of the German communication systems to stay one step ahead of the enemy. He became known as the Ghost in the Machine, a phantom presence that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The Germans were baffled by the sudden appearance of fake orders and disrupted communication lines, and they began to suspect that there was a traitor in their midst. Winters' actions had created a sense of paranoia and mistrust among the German ranks, and he knew that he had to keep pushing the advantage. He began to work closely with a small team of Allied operatives, using their combined skills to launch a series of daring raids behind enemy lines. They targeted key German installations, including command centers, supply depots, and communication hubs. The raids were carefully planned and executed, with Winters using his knowledge of the German systems to disable their defenses and create openings for the Allied teams. The Germans were caught off guard, and they struggled to respond to the sudden and unexpected attacks. As the Allies continued to push deeper into occupied France, Winters and his team found themselves facing increasingly stiff resistance. The Germans were determined to hold on to their territory, and they threw everything they had at the advancing Allies. Winters and his team were constantly on the move, using their skills and cunning to stay ahead of the enemy. They moved through the countryside, avoiding German patrols and dodging artillery fire. The sound of gunfire and explosions was constant, and Winters knew that they were taking a huge risk with every mission. But he also knew that the stakes were high, and that every success brought them closer to the ultimate goal of defeating Nazi Germany. One night, as they were making their way through a small village, they stumbled upon a group of German soldiers who were preparing to launch a counterattack. Winters and his team knew that they had to act fast, and they quickly came up with a plan to sabotage the German operation. Winters used his knowledge of the German communication systems to send a fake order, instructing the soldiers to stand down and await further instructions. The plan worked, and the German counterattack was called off. The Allies were able to continue their advance, and Winters and his team were hailed as heroes once again. But as they continued to push deeper into occupied France, they knew that the Germans would not give up easily. They were determined to fight to the last man, and Winters and his team would have to use all of their skills and cunning to outwit them. The battle for France was far from over, and Winters knew that the toughest challenges were still ahead. As they approached the town of Saint-Lô, they encountered some of the fiercest resistance yet. The Germans had fortified the town with machine gun nests, artillery positions, and minefields. Winters and his team knew that they would have to be careful if they were going to take the town without suffering heavy casualties. They spent hours scouting out the German defenses, looking for weaknesses and vulnerabilities. Winters used his knowledge of the German communication systems to gather intelligence, and they were able to identify a few key targets that they could use to their advantage. As they launched their attack, Winters and his team moved swiftly and silently, using their knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver the Germans. They took out the machine gun nests and artillery positions, and they carefully navigated the minefields. The Germans were caught off guard, and they were quickly overwhelmed. The town of Saint-Lô fell to the Allies, and Winters and his team were hailed as heroes once again. But as they continued to push deeper into occupied France, they knew that the war was far from over. They would have to face many more challenges and setbacks before they could finally claim victory. The battle for France was just the beginning, and Winters knew that the toughest fighting was still ahead. As they approached the German border, they could feel the tension building. The Germans were determined to defend their homeland, and they would stop at nothing to prevent the Allies from crossing the border. Winters and his team knew that they would have to be careful, and they spent hours planning and preparing for the next phase of the battle. They knew that the Germans would throw everything they had at them, and they would have to use all of their skills and cunning to outwit them. The stage was set for a final, decisive confrontation, and Winters knew that the outcome would determine the course of the war.